Hello, my name's Ethan from ExploreEatRepeat.com, and today, on behalf of Living Good Farms here in Israel, we're going to be talking about making babies from shoots that come off of the mother palm tree to make more date palms. So come along with us. We're going to take a look at some tools, some methods, and techniques to help you make babies. So what we're going to be doing here on the plantation is making baby bundles from shoots like this that come off of the mother palm tree. So what happens is they shoot these baby trees off of the main base of the date palm tree. And what we need to do is we need to create an artificial environment around the base of the tree, trying to induce root growth with the baby tree. In doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it and bundle it and pack it with soil and make it an independent baby. Let's take a look for a moment at some of the tools that you're going to use while making babies here at Date Plantation. First things you want to consider is your own clothes, all right? That's your first protection. So rubber boots are very, very helpful. Good work pants, something cloth that you don't mind getting really dirty. T-shirt or other shirt that's going to be useful. Again, you're going to get really dirty with this, so make sure that you have clothes you don't really care about. The next thing a lot of people want to use is gloves, especially for part one, clearing our workspace. One of the next tools you might see is the pickaxe, the nippers or loppers, all right, the sickled Arab saw, a straight saw, soil, a mini hoe for the soil, cinnamon water, more cinnamon to mix with more water to make your mixture, plastic for wrapping the babies, and string for tying them up, a razor for cutting the string, and water. First step, as usual, deals with safety, all right, and clearing the area to make it easier for you to work, all right? So one of the first things you want to look for is irrigation piping, right? If there's irrigation pipes in the way, we want to move them out of the way. We make sure that our workspace is clear and clean. We'll lop off any extra ends that haven't been hit by the chainsaw. Make sure that it's clear all the way around our head, our left, our right, and down below. Sometimes you need to clear out the base a little bit more by digging it out and getting the debris far away. Remember, you're going to be kneeling down, and there's a lot of spikes that come off of these trees. You want to make sure that those spikes aren't going to end up embedded in your leg. And you can see the bundle there that we've tied back in order to give us space around the baby. You want these to be about 1/2 meter high. Now that we've cleared the area, it's time to actually start cutting. This is what it's going to look like after it's been cleared by the chainsaw. I like to use my favorite saw here. Some people use a straight saw to sort of get some of the large chunks off, and then turn to the arched saw or sickle saw here to kind of start cutting in corners. We'll approach your baby tree and start cutting off the debris from the bottom and all this extra hair. Try to work in a circle all the way around. So you just work up in the back, work on the sides, taking off all of this hair and all of the extra wood. What your goal is to do is to remove all parts of the mother tree that are protecting the actual baby, so that the baby will shoot roots itself. See, there are different ways to hold your saw as you're using it. You can hold it in a backward grip like this, or in a forward grip like this. Remember, it only cuts in one direction, this way, as you can see with the teeth. So this grip allows you to reach around the back and come around the sides very easily. can use a reverse grip for the other side. It's important that you don't overwork one area. You want to constantly be moving in a circle all the way around. Coming up from the bottom. You don't want to remove too much material from one particular place because you could make the baby unstable. And making the baby unstable is not good because it could die. You're not going to be able to stay in one place while doing this cutting. You need to move around to get different angles with your saw so that you can remove more material. Remember, anything that's not part of the main plant shoot, you want to remove. So if you look closely here, you can actually see how this outer one is actually still protecting it from the mama. It's this one as well. So we want to try to remove some of that material. Our goal is to expose some of the inner white material that is the actual base of our main tree, because it's that area that will start to shoot roots when it's eventually ready. For each baby that we go to make, we're going to need one piece of plastic and 2 pieces of rope. Pull it out from the spool, make about an arm's length, take a little bite, cut it with our razor. We're going to tie it, take a bite of rope, just a loop, tie it around, make a loop. Make sure to leave enough tail that you can retie another knot. So that's what we'll be doing later. So again, take a bite of rope, leave enough slack here, over the top, pull a loop, pull it down, bam. So 2 for each baby, about 3 hands. 1, 2, 3. The size of this might change depending on the size, the average size of the baby that you're cutting. Down the first way, and then cut it down the length way. So now you're left with a large piece of square plastic. Once we get down towards the end, we want to make sure that you're going towards the inside of the baby. Make sure that you remove enough material that allows you to get the eventual shrouding or wrapping far enough down onto the baby. If you don't remove enough material, it'll be too high and you won't get any roots. After you've judged your cuts to be deep enough and sufficient enough to start wrapping, we take our plastic. We're going to take our plastic, we're going to wrap it around the tree like so. This is where it gets just a little bit tricky. For you sewing fans out there, you're going to enjoy this. What we want to do is we want to create a light funnel shape. We're going to use a tool that we get from the palm itself. We're going to use its own dried needles. Now these are sharp and they are painful, so you do want to be careful. You want to pick ones that are not too skinny, not too thick, sharp, strong tips, something like this. If they're too short, they won't push through properly. If they're too dull, they'll break. If they're too thin, they'll break. If they're too thick, they're too difficult to push all the way through. So I always get a few extra that I'll need. I usually use 3 per plastic. Making sure that the ends stay as flush and as level as possible. I'll do it once, and then I'll do it twice. Notice it's a little bit wider at the top than it is at the bottom. And what I do is I take one of my needles, pinching all the layers of plastic together. I push it through one layer, pull it back just a little bit, pull it up, then push it down through the other layer, just like so, and then pull it back. So there I have our first pin. I'm going to take another one, make sure that your seam and all the plastic is pushed in correctly, push it through, pull it back a little bit, come back, and down. You don't want to make the seam here, or the stitch, too wide because it won't be as strong. Keep it small, shallow, say about 2 centimeters. So that I've got 2. Push it through, pull it back, push it back down. Now the size of these will vary depending on if you're rebagging old babies that haven't grown roots. They might be larger and you might need to use 4. Sometimes you only need to use 2. This is all general. Remember, this whole process is changeable depending on what plant you are currently wrapping. And we want the seam that we've created to go in the back, just like so. And it'll fit nice and loose. Next, we take our rope, go around the back, around the front. We're going to push it through the loop that we've created with our knot, and we're going to pull it tight. We want to make sure that the shroud here, the wrapping, stays down as low as possible. We want to try to keep the tail that we've created right in front, so it allows us to tie a good knot. Pull it good and tight. Come around. When you meet the tail and it's good and tight, sometimes you do 1 loop, sometimes you can go around many times. Tie a basic square knot to hold it in place. And sort of go in and spread out your plastic, prepare it for the soil. This is where trimming the needles off earlier will come in handy, because you're about to shove your hand in here a lot and start pressing very firmly. If you haven't cleared it of needles and cleared your area, you could hurt yourself. Now, let's go get some soil and start stuffing this baby. Now that we've got our soil, we start putting a little bit in. I don't like to put too much in at the first go. And then what? You start stuffing it around the base. You want to get a good base, just like anything. Everybody's heard the analogies. A good basement, a good foundation. All right? You want to get it stuffed in the back and push it down tight, going all the way around the outside of the plastic and along the base of the plant itself. Sometimes you can use your fist, push it down in. Stuff it good and tight. Make sure you get lots of material up in the back. It's an area that's often neglected. You want to make sure that gets plenty of soil. You want to make sure that you also avoid air pockets. All right, that's why we're stuffing as much and packing as we go, and we're not just putting it in all at once. We need to avoid, you want soil all the way around the plant. Sometimes grabbing the plastic and pulling up allows you to pull out some of those air bubbles and pack it even tighter in there. So don't be afraid, grab the plastic and pull it up. Remember, you don't want to pull so hard that you pull it out. You want to make sure it stays nice and tight at the base. Not just packing it on the outside, you're packing it all the way around the outside of the plant as well. Pushing down with your fist. Remember, just like cutting, we want to work the whole area all at once. After you get the plant about half filled and half packed, you want to take your cinnamon water. Now we use cinnamon water because it's an organic method of keeping the ants and other pests away from our baby plant. So you don't want too much, but you do want to try to get it all the way around. Just a good slosh like that, all right, that it's all the way around. You don't want it too muddy, but it will help you pack it. Then you put in the rest of your soil, all right. Very often a misshapen piece of plastic might mean you haven't put in enough soil or you haven't pulled up in the plastic. There are different methods to fix mistakes, but the best method is to try to do it right from the beginning. Now you want to get it as tight as possible, pulling up on the plastic. If you have to question, hey, is this hard enough? You're not packing it hard enough. It needs to be like a rock. Remember, all the way around, from one side to the other side, and back again. Packing it good and tight. Lots of soil. Test it periodically. See how your progress is going. You reach the base of the plant where most of the fronds and the greens start popping out. You've reached the end. Notice you should have a nice, good cylinder. You should be able to touch the outside, and it should feel pretty darn hard all the way around. You can find different sticks around. You can help with a long stick. You can pack it in with a stick. But if you do that, make sure to be careful not to poke holes through your plastic as you're stuffing it in, as you're packing it down. Remember, we want to avoid holes and air pockets. That feels pretty good and hard for me. Make sure to be careful of your stitches, all right? Sometimes it being a little too hard, all right? If you try to pack too hard, the stitching, if you haven't packed it well enough, will start to split. You want to be careful of that. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to start over, but it does mean you have to be careful of how you're stuffing it and how you're going about it later on. You don't want to overstuff it to the point where you start breaking your own stitching. Stuff that down in there. When you've reached the end, or what you feel is the end, test it one more time. Take your second rope that you've created, go around the front, pull it good and tight. As you go around, pull up on the collar. Again, you're still trying to avoid air pockets. Try to keep the tail accessible in the front or side. Pull it good and tight. Come all the way back around. Find the tail. And finish her off. Pull the collar up, pull it over the top, test it one more time, make sure your stitching holes are good, and you've created yourself a baby. There's only one more step to a successful baby creation. Last stage is just to mark that you've done it. Happens today, we're using red. I like to do a nice good heart. You can use whatever. Eat your heart out, Banksy. There. You've created a palm baby. And hopefully, in about 3 to 6 months, roots will be created. If all is gone all right, you've packed it correctly and everything is going well, you will start to see roots that look like this in the bag of the wrapping. Once this has occurred, it will be cut off the palm and put into the nursery, ready to become its own fruit-bearing tree in about 5 years. One thing you always have to remember is your tools, all right? There's a lot of tools roaming around when you're doing this sort of job. Make sure that you put them all back where they're supposed to be. Everything back on the wagon, back in your buckets, everything back where it's supposed to be. That way we don't lose things and nobody gets cut, trips over stuff. We have to buy new tools. Maintain good habits at all times. Thank you. My name's Ethan from Explore Eat Repeat. On behalf of Living Good Farms here in Jordan Valley, we hope that you have a successful time making date palm babies.